Coming up on Network Africa. Fire in Darfur refugee camp destroys 50 houses. No casualties reported as Sudan marks 2 years of conflict. United Nations Children Agency decries horrifying rampant sexual violence being committed against children and women in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Plus, the United Arab Emirates and Chad sign agreement to build a hospital dialysis center in N'Djamena. Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Olandi. We begin in Sudan, where a fire has destroyed over 50 houses in a camp for displaced people in Sudan's western region of Darfur. Officials from the General Coordination for Displaced Persons and Refugees in Darfur say the fire happened on Tuesday in Mokja camp. However, there are no reports of casualties. It is unclear what caused the fire, but this has worsened the living situation of the displaced people. More than 300 civilians were killed in 2 days of intense fighting in Sudan's conflict Darfur region. Sudan plunged into conflict on April 15, 2023, when long-simmering tensions between the military and paramilitary leaders broke out in the capital Khartoum and spread to other regions, including the vast western Darfur region. Meanwhile, in Sudan's North Darfur, tens of thousands of people have fled a displacement camp following the massacre of civilians and aid workers as the country enters the third year of a conflict marked by horrific levels of sexual violence. UN humanitarians briefing journalists in Geneva speak of massive displacement after opposition forces and their affiliates reportedly launched coordinated assaults on Zamzam and Abu Shuk, two of the largest camps for internally displaced people in Darfur.
They are all fleeing the Zamzam camp, and the other camps are being targeted, trying to go to Al-Fashir because male have been the main target. As you are aware, Relief International lost 10 of their medical teams working there, which has led also to all actors to try to flee the scene. We are estimating that more than 80,000 has already fled the camp, and the numbers are really increasing every day.
Thousands of civilians are trapped in the Darfur region with very little access or no access at all to critical humanitarian life-saving services that they need, including access to water, access to food, and access to health care. We call, therefore, for an urgent humanitarian access and protection of humanitarian aid workers. We've seen a 288% increase in demand for life-saving support following rape and sexual violence. We've also seen what is beginning to look like systematic use of rape and sexual violence as a weapon of war. We have seen women's lives and women's bodies being turned into battlegrounds in this conflict.
We estimate that the GDP of Sudan has dropped by 40%. We are now facing a triple-digit inflation with the prices of the goods that have skyrocketed and have created difficulties for people to access essential goods, and including food. We have a severe disruption of infrastructure and services. In some areas of Sudan, less than a quarter of the health facilities are working, for example, and access to water remain very complicated. We are going to face a challenge, but it's also, I think, an opportunity in supporting the return of what we estimate it could be about 3 million people, maybe to the capital, and maybe even 4 million in other, 3 to 4 million considering other regions that the population now consider to be safe.
Distressing updates we are getting now from the United Nations on the violence, ongoing violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The UN Children's Agency, UNICEF, estimates that during the most intense phase of this year's conflict in the eastern region of DRC, one child was raped every half an hour. Catherine Russell, the head of the agency, says rape and other forms of sexual violence are being used as a weapon of war to destroy lives, families, and communities.
I'd like to draw special attention to the most defining and horrifying feature of this conflict, the rampant violence being committed against children and women. Scores have been killed or injured. There has been a 100% increase in verified grave violations against children in the first quarter of this year as compared to the first quarter of 2024. These include indiscriminate attacks, large-scale recruitment and use of children, collective abductions of children, as well as widespread sexual violence. The rate of sexual violence against children has reached shocking levels. DRC also remains the epicenter of the outbreak of the new Mpox strain. Of course, the Mpox response continues to be heavily impacted by the conflict. For example, most of the 143 Mpox patients in isolation units in Goma had to flee for safety, making it nearly impossible to provide them with care and increasing the risk of the disease spreading beyond DRC's borders. At the same time, healthcare facilities have been overwhelmed, and medical supplies are being quickly depleted, including post-exposure prophylaxis, or PEP kits, used to treat rape survivors who may have been exposed to HIV or other sexually transmitted infections.
The United Arab Emirates and Chad have signed an agreement to inaugurate the Sheikh Fatima bint Mubarak Hospital and a dialysis center in the Chadian capital in N'Djamena. The signing ceremony, held on the sidelines of the Abu Dhabi Global Health Week in the United Arab Emirates capital. Head of the UAE Agency for International Aid, Tariq Al-Meri, and the Chadian Minister of Finance and Economy, Tahir Ungulin, signed the agreement on behalf of their countries. The agreement provides for the construction and operation of the Sheikh Fatima bint Mubarak Hospital in N'Djamena on land that was allocated by the Chadian government with a total area of 11,300 square meters. Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tuga, has met with his Nigerian counterpart in Niamey, leading a high-level delegation aimed at restoring and strengthening diplomatic relations between Nigeria and the Republic of Niger. The visit marks a significant step in mending ties between both countries, which were quite strained since the July 2023 coup in Niger. Mr. Tuga delivered a special message from Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu to General Abdurrahmane Tichiani, the head of state of the West African nation. Both foreign ministers discussed critical issues such as security cooperation, regional trade, economic development, and cross-border collaboration, among others. Reaching out to strengthen diplomatic ties is important for the progress of Western Africa and, by extension, Africa. This has become even more necessary given the current global economic realities, which is why the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs in Lagos recently organized a Nigeria-Liberia roundtable to commemorate a visit by the Liberian finance minister to the country recently. Our correspondent Amarachi Ubani reports.
The Nigerian Institute of International Affairs in Lagos has become the meeting point for diplomatic and bilateral conversations over the years. And so, when the Liberian Minister of Finance and Development Planning, Augustine Ngafwan, scheduled a visit to Big Brother Nigeria, it was only natural he would make a stopover at the Institute. Attending this special roundtable are senior members of the Institute, members of the diplomatic community, and members of Nigeria's business community. In his open address, the NIIA Director General, Professor Ehosa Osage, recalled his time in Liberia before its civil war, testifying to the resilience and hard work of the people who've always maintained relations with Nigeria.
The slave ships that were seized and arrested on the high seas after Liberia became an independent country had to discharge their human cargo in Monrovia, and those people became citizens of Liberia. And they retained their original names. So having just been enslaved from, Nigeria and so on, if my name was Ngozi, I remained Ngozi. If I was Azikiwe, I remained Azikiwe. So don't think when you come across those names that it is Nigerians who emigrated in this present era to become part of Liberia. Now, many of the fishing people in and around Monrovia for a long time were Ijos and Urhobos and Isokos. So if you were to go there and you find people speaking Urhobo and speaking Isoko and speaking... Professor Ubi, what language do you speak? Bakumiri. Baumolu. Well, you'll find them too in Monrovia. So the guys are indigenous, and that's very fine. So when Liberia comes here, Liberia is home. I want to say to us that there is a lot we have in common. Don't date our commonality from ECOMOG. We have been strongly with Liberia. And I'm glad that the Minister of Finance is here. I was saying to members of the business community here in the last 1 week, better come here and take your bearings from the opportunities on offer in Liberia.
The Director General's brief walk down memory lane reminded the Finance Minister of Nigeria's intervention into the civil war that wrecked his country.
During the height of our war, Nigeria stood strong, helped us through it. Whether it was through the ECOWAS initiative that was called ECOMOG, or with the UN initiative that was at one point called UNIMIL, and then UNMIL, Nigerian troops were there. They dominated. And so we have peace today in Liberia. Yes, we can attribute it to many other things, but because the big brother in the region indeed was our big brother during the time of need. And we in Liberia remain eternally grateful.
He brings attendees to the present by advising on Africa's response to the recent global tariffs imposed on by the U.S. president, saying now is a time for countries to rally together.
What we need to do is to quicken the pace so that we can achieve all the ambitions that are set forth in the Free Trade Area Agreement. I was the country manager of the African Development Bank in Uganda for quite a while, but I'm a West African. The East African have their bloc. Within East Africa, they can travel freely, but if a West African is traveling there, you need visa. Although, so we have a situation where the regional economic blocs have created free movements for themselves across the continent, but there is no free movement across the blocs. So the question is, why are we not creating the situation that exists in Europe, where a European with a European passport can travel in any part of the EU region? Why can't we do that?
He emphasizes political stability in his country, Liberia, and marketed its economic viability, urging Nigerian businesses to come to Liberia to invest. The roundtable comes to an end after a brief question and answer session, leaving attendees more curious about Liberia. Amarachi Ubani, Channels Television News.
The Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, is appealing to immigration authorities in Cape Verde to treat the Nigerian tourists in their custody with respect and dignity. This comes after 6 Nigerian tourists who traveled from Senegal to Cape Verde Island were accused of not having enough funds, their phones confiscated and subsequently locked up in an immigration deportation camp at the airport. According to NIDCOM, there are reports from the Immigration Detention Center that indicate these young Nigerians ranging from 25 and 31 years are going through distress and trauma, with one of them having a medical condition without access to his drugs. The Commission is asking that they be put on the next return flight to Dakar for onward connection back to Nigeria, especially as their families are worried about the safety of their children. Let's take a break now on the program. Still to come. India boosts defense ties with African nations. More details after the break. Please join us again. Welcome back to the program. We continue in South Africa. The new special envoy to the United States, Mbisi Jonas, is currently under scrutiny after comments he made about U.S. President Donald Trump resurfaced online. The new envoy's speech criticizing Mr. Trump and his first term was delivered back in November 2020, and that was 5 days after the election where former President Joe Biden defeated him. Mr. Jonas, a former deputy finance minister, was appointed by President Cyril Ramaphosa as his representative tasked with rebuilding deteriorating relations with the U.S. And this was after Washington expelled its former ambassador Ibrahim Rasool last month. Joining us now for more on this is Channels TV's correspondent in South Africa, Innocent Samosa. Hello, Innocent. The internet never forgets. That's what they say. What is the magnitude of this statement made by the new envoy? Although this was back in 2020, but it's back on the devices of people on social media.
Yeah, indeed, it comes back to haunt him. Like you rightly put, the internet does not forget. But of course, he has downplayed it. He said that at that time, he was actually an activist. He said that even politicians, well-known politicians, they've said some nasty stuff about each other. So he said that, I mean, it was back then when he was an activist. But like you rightly alluded to, the internet does not forget. But of course, it goes without saying that Mcebisi Jonas, it remains to be seen whether or not he will be able to carry out the duties of being a special envoy to South Africa, given the challenges between the uncertain, relationship between South Africa and the United States. But of course, simply because of where he comes from, he essentially comes from business. He is a board member of MTN. He is also a board member of a mining company. So one wonders, why does he take this job? But of course, when he was asked that question by local media, he said that he's taken this because of the national interest. He said that he's up to the task to basically mend the relationship between South Africa and America. But well, again, Amarachi, again, Layo, it remains to be seen whether or not he'll be able to mend this, relationship between the two nations. Layo.
And we're yet to get any reaction from the U.S. to this, but have we heard any comments from President Cyril Ramaphosa's office, reacting?
No, actually, President Ramaphosa's office they've not reacted. They've not said anything, simply because he was deployed by the president. And by the way, maybe like we should talk about his role as a special envoy. So the difference between an ambassador and a special envoy. So basically, what he's going to do there, it's not necessarily an ambassador position, but he is going there to represent the government of South Africa or the president of South Africa in specific matters. For an example, this time around, we do know that he's going there to mend the relationship around trade policies and also the tariffs that we're seeing, by President Donald Trump. So those are some of the things that he's supposed to do. Again, I wonder if the government of America will basically respond to this, and I wonder how they'll respond to this, given the fact that he said that these are old things. He actually wants to mend the relationship between the two countries. But again, a big task lies ahead of Mcebisi Jonas, Layo.
Indeed. Just before I let you go, curious to know what the South African people think about, all of this going on, the relationship between their country and the United States.
Well, Layo, the majority of South Africans really want the relationship to work out because they know that America is one of the second biggest trading partner. So the relationship is as important as it comes when you're looking at business in the country. I mean, for an example, we produce BMW. The BMW M3 hybrid is X3 hybrid. We're the only country that produces that car, and about 10% of that car goes to America. So that goes to show that there's a need for us to mend the relationship. So, but I think some people think that the president has not sent the right people. They believe that Mcebisi Jonas is not someone that understands international relations, or he'll be able to understand how Washington works, because they believe that they need somebody who can be able to engage and make Washington understand and understand the laws of Washington as a whole. But it goes without saying again, Layo, because he of course is adamant that he can carry out the duty, but it remains to be seen whether or not he's up to the task. But overall, the mood in the country is that they want this relationship to work. But at the same time, the government of Cyril Ramaphosa has made it clear that they will not allow America to bully South Africa because of its laws that is trying to address the apartheid regime, things that came with apartheid. But yeah, again, a big task lies ahead of him. We wish him all the best. We want this relationship to work, and because we don't want to lose more jobs due to trade tensions between the two nations. The two nations are important for the growth of the continent. Layo.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Innocent Samosa, our correspondent in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Thank you, colleague.
We're back here in Nigeria. The former Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, is calling on youths to reject agents of division and exclusion and focus on shared values in an era increasingly defined by identity politics. He stated this while speaking at the Lagos Leadership Summit 2025.
Also here present with us is the head of service of Lagos State.
The Lagos Leadership Summit is one of the flagship events of the Lateef Jakonde Leadership Academy, which serves as a transformative platform that brings together young, visionary leaders to drive Nigeria's rebirth. The second edition of the summit, which was launched in 2024, had in attendance the Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, former Governor Babatunde Fashola, State Executive Council members, and traditional leaders who took part in the leadership conversation.
Please keep it going till she gets to the podium. Thank you.
The Executive Secretary of the Lateef Jakonde Leadership Academy sets the tone for the discussions.
Hi, everyone. The Lagos Leadership Summit is not another gathering. It's a call, it's a movement. It's a reckoning of possibilities. We bridge generational gaps because the future cannot exist in isolation of the past.
Governor Sanwo-Olu engages the audience on how to create a legacy from your leadership by designing systems that work without you.
Leadership, it's all about ensuring that it's not about you, it's about a generation even that is coming behind you. Never be too scared about the deep end. You know, the deep end might actually just be a starting point for you to rediscover yourself. You know, I mean, once you are able to, you know, be very courageous, be very discerning, you know, and be very forthright, you know, about what you believe, what your standards, what your principles are, please go for it.
This opens discussions further and leads the next speaker, former Lagos State Governor Babatunde Fashola, leaving the audience imagining what will happen when leadership leaves people behind.
We are having this conversation in this leadership forum at a time when identity politics is gaining global ascendancy. Whether you are old, whether you are young, I urge you, please turn your backs on these agents of division. Turn your backs on these agents of exclusion. Turn your back on the agents of hate, and turn your back on the agents of vitriol. Their disposition will not enrich our civilization. I am very clear about that. On the contrary, they are going to endanger our civilization, and young people have the greatest to lose if the human civilization is threatened.
Royal fathers also speak on the best ways to unite tradition and youths for nation building.
If you don't know your past, how do you operate in the present time or even forecast, the future? So you'll be lost. You are neither here nor there.
To me, this is a call to action. Government has a major role to play. Religious bodies have a major role to play. Even we parents, do we even let our children know our culture and tradition? Do they know about their roots? Do they know about their heritage?
It's actually cool to come back to your roots and all what God and your parents have put in you that you've seen all over the world, you can bring it back home with your unique base and show your other peers that this is what gives us the advantage that we have in this world. We cannot try to, even when we're trying to build the Nigerian democracy, we cannot try to do it like the West. It is from home.
First person is inmate education.
And the moment everyone has been waiting for, Governor Sanwo-Olu announces the 5 lucky winners of the Award for Social Impact, who receive 5 million naira each for touching lives through various projects. The take-home message for the youth, according to the state government, is to stay focused and acquire skills that will help them drive sustainable impact in their various communities and beyond.
And as we end the program, India has kicked off its inaugural naval drills with 10 African nations in Dar es Salaam as the country aims to boost its defense ties in the region. The 6-day military exercise called Africa-India Key Maritime Engagement aims to develop collaborative solutions to regional maritime challenges. And that's it on the program today. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.